Hey, I'm Matt Nichols at MrMaple.com and welcome to another Mr. Maple Show video. We greatly appreciate you clicking on this. Please share this video with your gardening friends, but also like, subscribe, and comment below. That helps us get up higher in the algorithm, and sharing this with your gardening friends is the very best way for us to grow our channel. We love to get this content directly to gardeners. We greatly appreciate that so much. Today we have a fun topic for you. Of course, you're watching a video out of leaf, so you're the plant geekiest of plant geekiest already. So I'd like to welcome you to this one. Today we're going to be talking about variegated Japanese maples, and not only that, some of our favorite variegated Japanese maples. So first up, we have one of my very favorite variegated Japanese maples. We were one of the very first nurseries to ever grow this. It's an introduction by Jonathan Savlich, who is Del Lauch's grandson. He actually named Lileeanne's Jewel for his daughter Lileeanne, and it's an amazing plant. You may see this one incorrectly listed sometime as Little Annie's. I've seen it in many different ways, but I've actually met Lileeanne, and so that's the name of the tree, Lileeanne's Jewel. An amazing style of variegation. This is one of those wow factor plants. The first time you see this, people are just like, that doesn't even look real, it's amazing. This is gonna have bright pink over dark red variegated leaves.
Yeah, I think this is probably one of my favorite of the red on red variegations, where it has that just strong pink red on top of that brighter red leaf in the spring, going to that darker red leaf, and then that more scarlet to crimson fall color on more of a Matsumori leaf, deeply divided with variegation on it as well. Very unique, very different. This was one of Jonathan's, I guess, his best introduction to date. Del Lauch, his grandfather, trained him, and basically he found this as a variegated sport, and then Del worked with him and showed him how to continually graft it and stabilize the variegation. And I think this is probably one of the most stable red on pink variegated types.
Yeah, it blows me away for stability. You know, we get a lot of interest in, I'd say, like Fujinami Nishiki or Taiman Nishiki, and those plants are beautiful, but they do require a lot of pruning to keep them variegated. Very minimal pruning on Lileeanne's Jewel. Like, it is a tree that distinctly stays variegated and has been consistently variegated for us. You know, you don't have to worry about collecting specifically only variegated branches because it's come back and it's looked amazing, all the ones we graft. Now, this is a tree that I've really been impressed with in the garden. It's been a very durable plant for us here in the South. We were one of the very first nurseries to get this from Del Lauch. I think we might have got this in '09 from him. I know it was his new thing. He had like one that year, and he shared some with us very early on. We traded some cool plants with him, and so we got to propagate this one for quite a while. It's one we've had here at Mr. Maple for, you know, well over, I mean, '09. It's been a minute now.
I think if people may have found it at the Maple Mafia on eBay, that was us releasing it in liners, because it was so popular. We sold out of these. We probably sold 70 or 80 of these.
A very high price. They were, original bids on eBay for these went through the roof for sure.
But Lileeanne's Jewel is one of our favorite red on red variegations, that red pink on red. And with that deeply divided leaf, it really stands out from the other Japanese maples.
I think it's one you're going to love in your garden. I mean, it pretty much works with everything. If you like flashy, over-the-top variegated styles, you're going to love this one. It's like top-notch for flash.
Next up is one of my favorite reticulated Japanese maples. This one is called Amagi Shiguri. This is a selection from Japan, a little bit slower grower than a lot of the other reticulated types, so it's not going to be a very large tree. You want to give it some protection from the hot afternoon sun. But this one is more violet than purple. It's more that light purple color.
Yeah, this is a beautiful tree. As Tim said, it was first found in Japan. Our friend Talon Buckholt saw this one in Japan and said, "Oh, are you growing purple ghost? It looks a little different." And they said, "No, this is a more dwarf form." And one thing I would say, it's a little more almost like glossy on the leaf too. It's a larger leaf and a little more glossy, but a beautiful form. Definitely much more dwarf than a lot of the other reticulated varieties.
And we're talking a violet, light lavender leaf with darker purple reticulated veins in the leaf. And this style of variegation is called a reticulated variegation. And Amagi Shiguri is one that really stands out from the crowd because of its dwarf nature. But really that violet lavender kind of color makes this one very unique, very different. There's not a lot of other plants that give that kind of color.
Amazing color patterns. Because of its smaller overall stature, this is a great candidate for the container garden. You can use it in the ground or in the container garden, but it's an awesome candidate for a big pot where you want to bring that color back, you know, to the patio, kind of get something different going on there. It's got so much intricate foliage with that reticulated variegation. And we have a whole video on New Ghost. We talk a little bit about reticulation, but you'll see that swirling and etching through every single leaf. So it looks like every little vein in the leaf is outlined. And that's what Amagi Shiguri is famous for sure.
And Amagi Shiguri is an amazing plant you'll definitely enjoy. We've had the blessing of getting a lot of knowledge and a lot of resources from a lot of older nurserymen. And one of our friends, Talon Buchholz, actually has some of paperwork from Japan on one of the gentlemen who introduced Amagi Shiguri that he mailed to us and said, hey, you know, I want y'all to retain this information. And so we'll see if we can't put some clips of that in here as well.
And it says, in the Showa era, this cultivar was given to Mr. Tayama in the Ito city in the Shizuoka Prefecture. The plant was sold to Mr. Hamano, and Mr. Hamano named this plant Amagi Shiguri. At the present time of 1993, the birth of this cultivar is unknown whether it was seed or it was grafted from mutations stems of the parent. So basically like a sport. To compare with Akashikatsusawa or Kasagiyama, the reticulated variegation is a wonderful cultivar with strong impression of deep color of the vein, makes accent between the leaves. Here's some photos he included. And it says, in mid-April, the leaves start to open with the red in color. The vein color stands out with a dark red, which is much deeper in color than Akashikatsusawa. The surface of the leaves are covered in hairs. I mean, this is some really good information about what it does in April. From May, June, and July about Amagi Shiguri. And as you see down here, left is a Kasagiyama, in the middle is Amagi Shiguri, and the right is Akashikatsusawa. Here's some more of the information for anyone that wants to read everything. You can also click pause and read more. It looks like he made this on July 31st, 2007 and mailed this to Talon. If any of y'all can read this, it'd be awesome if you could post this in the comments.
But we think you're going to love Amagi Shiguri. This is a tree that's going to go with so many applications in the landscape, and it's going to stand out against those greens and reds and really give you some bright, kind of a lavendery purple there in the garden. So next up, we have a really interesting variegated plant. This is our first yellow selection on the table, and also it would look awesome next to any of the other selections because of that. This is irene. Irene is a variegated sport found on summer gold. So you've got that classic summer gold, bright neon yellow, but now with a cream variegated border that gives it a ruffle look. This was found by some of our friends in Europe and selected for just being a very striking variation there. So it's gonna have everything you love about summer gold, but also with a ruffle edge of variegation to it.
And that variegation sometimes can be a bright orange. And that orange on the yellow makes this really stand out and add an extra ornamental appeal to an already pretty plant of summer gold. So you've got this variegated sport on summer gold, which became irene. You hear me always talk about the yellows. I love yellow. You could go from hot blonde, summer gold, Jordan, irene. The yellows bring out so much in the landscape of the colors. It tricks the eye into seeing all the different shades of green, and they need to be used more. Irene is a variegated yellow, so you can get variegation and also have a yellow tree. It's one of my favorites. We have about a 10 to 12 foot one.
One of the older ones in the US for sure.
Yeah, of an irene, and it's a plant that that's very unique, very different, but it's going to give you a lot of that yellow color.
Yeah, I love this plant. You know, another cool thing about this is it has that ruffle border that's going to be a slightly different color in the fall as well. So the eye of that, if you will, the middle part that looks more like summer gold, is still going to have that bold red, almost pink red color, while the border has a softer light pink border. So you get a two-tone variegated look even in the fall when it goes into that fall color. I think it's quite exquisite. It's one that's going to pair very well with any of the red selections. I mean, you put this next to Amagi Shiguri, it makes another awesome candidate for a container garden where you're going to have an amazing amount of contrast.
And irene has the same heat tolerance as summer gold. So a plant that's established where we're at in Western North Carolina can handle full sun. You may have to give some protection from the hot afternoon sun in hotter climates and hotter zones, but it's a yellow that can handle a lot more sun than some of the other yellow selections. And because of that, it's going to be a plant that you can really enjoy in a lot of different places in the garden.
Yeah, I think it's a perfect candidate. As summer gold works so well in containers, I love this one in containers because you can kind of play with it a little bit, and it just gives you something that you can put up on the patio like that Amagi Shiguri or even Lileeanne's Jewel that are going to have a wow factor of color. I like to get those plants up close where I can kind of interact with them and take pictures of them every day, have them on the patio, or in an area where I can change around the light to see where I best enjoy it. So that's a fun way to do that one, but it works equally as good in the ground as well.
The next plant we're talking about can be one of the most variegated maples of any of these that we have up here. It can be leaves can be almost pink and white, splotched, variegated. It's very unique, very different. Because of that, you want to give it some protection from the hot afternoon sun because there'll be a lot of pink and white in this in the early spring.
Yeah, Acer palmatum radiant goes through some amazing color changes. One of the most extreme versions of an Aridno Nishiki, so you get a lot of that swirling style variegation. So much so that you actually get a really nice candy stripe, almost like a candy cane striping to the bark. So it gives it a really nice, almost winter interest. I don't consider this one a coral bark, but it has so much variegation in it that you'll get some bark interest in the new growth for sure.
Yeah, this is a plant that I think can really be used to add a lot of pink and whites in the early spring. And during that springtime, you're really going to get a lot of pink and white. It may get a little bit of green to it during the summer, but you're still going to have a heavy amount of variegation of that pink and white, more so than many other variegated pink and white selections.
Yeah, the fall color on this is a very bold red too with some swirling in it. So you get quite a unique color. Often those white spots will be even a lighter pink than the dark red of the green parts. And it's just a tree that gives you a ton of color throughout every season. It's definitely going to be a plant you're going to want to get out and take some pictures of, especially in the early spring. It's some wow factor photography every time.
It is. It's a photographer's dream for sure because every leaf has a different style of variegation to it. And so you can go through and almost photograph every single leaf, different groupings of leaves, and really get some really nice photos that you'll really enjoy. So everyone's been loving these discussions we've been having on plants. And so we bring Brian in and all of us get together and sort of talk about these plants. So I really hope you all enjoy this segment. If you like seeing this segment, please comment in the section below. That lets us know that you're really enjoying these segments, and we'll keep doing more and more of them. So Matt, what is your favorite of these group?
Gosh, that's a hard choice. I mean, these are a lot of my favorite trees. I would say a lot of these on this table would probably make my top 20. If I was cutting down from 1,000 cultivars to a top 20 list, I'd probably put a lot of these pretty near the top. I mean, that's a hard decision. I would say just because I really enjoyed getting it so early, probably Lileeanne's Jewel. I mean, that was one I knew was special and nobody else had it really early on, so it was kind of really cool to have that one. I mean, the colors were kind of knock your socks off to begin with. I like really everything about it, being the pink on red variegation. That's just one I think special to me. I like that one a whole lot. But gosh, it's a hard one to pick because you could ask me a different day of the week and I might feel differently about that one with what we have on the table here.
What about you, Brian?
That is a very hard decision to make. You know, they're all awesome. But I'll tell you, the irene was pretty spectacular when I was growing it in Oklahoma. Like you said, there's just nothing quite like it with that ruffle on the edge of the leaf. The color, that bright yellow, just made everything else in my garden stand out.
That's a great choice. What about you, Tim?
You already chose Lileeanne's Jewel, so I've got to choose something different. It would probably be Amagi Shiguri. I mean, Radiant's fantastic with the pink and white swirls. It's the best of its kind. But the colors you get on Amagi Shiguri are so unreal that they look photoshopped. And you don't get that color, that lavender color, on many other Japanese maples or many other plants at all. And to get that color out of anything is pretty special.
Also being a dwarfer form of reticulated, it really stands out as well. So of these two, if you were planting two of them together, which two would you pair together? And like, say you were doing two container gardens beside each other, what would be your pairing?
Well, I think you could really pair any of these together. I think Radiant next to Amagi Shiguri would be fantastic. And Irene next to Lileeanne's Jewel would be fantastic. The pink swirls and white against the lavender colors of Amagi Shiguri, or the yellow against the red and pink would be fantastic. But the most dynamic contrast is maybe it's just the Western Carolina catamounts coming out.
Right.
The yellow of Anne Irene and the Amagi Shiguri lavender, that's going to give you your most dynamic, bright yellow, what is this? And your lavender, what is this?
You know, that's the old garden show trick right there. We put up a table. In fact, this is actually the tablecloth we used to take to garden shows. So that's the old garden show trick, is you put your variegated purple, or your most standout purple, next to one of the brightest yellows, because wow, those colors are going to pop. I mean, it works every time. So,
Brian, of these, which trees did you grow in your garden in Oklahoma?
I had the Anne Irene, I had the Amagi Shiguri, and I think I even had Lileeanne's Jewel as well. That was a really fun one. I had it right there at the end of when I had my garden, and the colors on that was really unbelievable. I've got some really cool pictures. I'll try to chop into the video, and it'll blow your mind, that's for sure.
I know you had it because I shipped you a big one. I remember. So
and you said it took a pretty good amount of sun in
It
Oklahoma.
did, yeah. I had it kind of right at the edge of the shade in my yard, and just to try to see how much I could push on those leaves, and it really gave it that hot pink against that deep red, and it was pretty amazing, that's for sure.
I've seen that too in the South here. In Simpsonville, South Carolina, our friend Richard Bomar was one of the people who went with us the first time we met with Dell Laux and Jonathan. And he had one of the very first Lileeanne's Jewels as well. And I know for a fact he was growing it in full sun in Simpsonville, South Carolina. So it took a good bit of sun for him here in the South as well, and really looked phenomenal.
Oh yeah. And I think any of these plants can really add something different. They're all variegated, but they're all variegated differently.
Yeah.
We've got a red on pink variegation. We've got a reticulated lavender variegation. A yellow that can get some orange variegation on the outside of the leaves, and pink and white variegation with swirls and spots.
Yeah,
They're so different, but they're all variegated plants, and that's one of the things I love about variegated plants. Is it makes the world so much more exciting. Variegation is one of those things where you take a plant that's green, that has good fall color, and then all of a sudden, pink and white, you got radiant.
Yeah.
You take a plant that's yellow and already showing off, and you say, hey, here's something more special about it. It just adds so much more to a plant when it's variegated. I mean, there's whole Facebook groups on variegated plants.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And these are all, there's so many cool variegated Japanese maples out there.
So one thing I'll bring up about this pairing that I think is interesting is sometimes you'll have people that are purists that say they don't like variegated plants, bah humbug and all that. But it's normally people that consider that, like when I talk to people and they're like, oh, I'm more of a Japanese maple purist, I only like very bold greens and reds. And you'll get that some in Europe and in North America. And what's funny to me about that is I'm friends with a lot of Japanese nurserymen, and they love these specific types. I've seen each of these four growing in Japan, and the nurseries I know can't get enough of this kind of thing too. Like a lot of our friends grow this style plant in Japan, and it knocks them out just as much as us. So it's not like, oh wow, they're not into this style of flashiness and the variegated forms in Japan, because I mean, gosh, many of our friends, they're just plant geeks like us. It's like, wow, some amazing color.
Yeah, a lot of the people that we've seen in Japan or met in Japan, they have some amazing plants that are, your typical Osakazuki, which is a great plant, great fall color, but then they also have a variegated version of that Kenpai.
Yeah,
they have a variegated version, and they enjoy the nuances of the plant, if it's variegated or if it's not.
Yeah. It's really all up to individual taste, and it's not to knock anybody's taste at all, but it just kind of makes me laugh when people say, I'm a purist, I only like this, and I'm like, gosh, everybody enjoys this all around the globe that I've talked to. So there's some really cool variances here, and I think there's something that's going to add a splash of color to any Japanese maple garden. Any 4 of these could go in a collection of some of the most common types, and that's going to stand out. Like, people are going to go, wow, I saw that in your garden. What was that plant? Because these are all kind of top tier showstopper plants, in my opinion.
So Brian, you said that you had Amagi Shiguri in your garden. What kind of colors did you get out of that?
That one, I for whatever reason, it wound up in a shady location, just matter of space and everything else. But it was really impressive, even in the shade. You know, it came out really dark when it first comes out in the spring for me in the shade, and then just lightened up really quick, which that transition in color just really, you know, every day you go out there and look at it. And what's great at being a smaller stature too, you always kind of get that bird's eye view of those leaves every time you go out and look at it, and every day it was a little bit different. So that's what I really enjoyed about it.
Yeah, it's a fun plant. I like the color on it. I know I talked about it earlier, but
Yeah, it's unique in that it's violet. I mean, like, there's a lot of purple, but it's a little bit different shade. It's certainly a different shade than purple ghost, which is kind of your gold standard for reticulated purple varieties. They're always all going to be compared to purple ghost. I mean, Amagi Shiguri makes sense to me. It's got a lot different going on and something unique about it for me, for sure.
Thank you for watching this video today. We appreciate it. Make sure you like and subscribe, and share this with your gardening friends.
Hey, thanks so much. As always, sign up for our weekly emails on MrMaple.com. We had 10 new plants every single Tuesday at 10. If you're watching this one live, it's January 2022. Some of these may already be listed. Some of these are on upcoming 10 at 10, so there's a sneak peek for you. So always sign up for those emails, because there's always new and exciting things. Also, if you're watching it now, these are size examples that are true for right now. If you're watching this a year from now, the sizes may be slightly larger or slightly smaller than this. But some excellent sizes in each of these. Again, Lileeanne's Jewel, Amagi Shiguri, and Irene, and Radiant. Just some real flash on the color there. We hope you enjoyed this sneak peek at some of these and a look at some of our favorite variegated Japanese maples. Thanks for watching. God bless.
And have a great day.